How do we measure the volume of, or the space that a 3D object takes up? Before we begin, let's remind ourselves that with all basic units of measurement, such as seconds, hours, kilograms, degrees Celsius, and squared units, that would be for area, one thing they all have in common is they are all repeatable units. That is, the amount of time in 1 second is always the amount of time for any other second, and a kilogram is always the same amount of weight no matter how many kilograms an object weighs. Now, the unit that we use to measure volume, we call it cubed units. This makes sense because cubes would be the best way to measure the space inside of a 3D object. We wouldn't want to measure volume with spheres because there'd be gaps left over inside of our space. So cubes would be the best way to measure that. Let me show you how it works. Let's try and work out how much space is inside the cube here on the screen. Let's use cubic units or cubed units to see how many cube units fit inside this space. So let me put a cubed unit on the screen. Here is a cubed unit right here. Now this cubed unit, along with any other type of unit of measurement, is always going to have a unit measurement of 1. So if we just zoom in here, we go into here, let's just write down that the length, let's use a thinner stylus. The length of this cubed unit is going to be 1. Now, not 1 centimeter, not 1 meter, it's just 1 for now. The width of this cubed unit is going to be also 1. And the height of this cubed unit is also going to be 1. Now, whether it becomes centimeters or whether it becomes meters entirely depends on what your question is relating to or what you're actually measuring. Are you measuring with meters? Are you measuring with centimeters? It entirely depends. But the cubed unit does not have centimeters or meters attached to it. It's just the numerical value. All right, let's go ahead and try and figure out how many of these cubed units fit into our object. And I'm just going to paste them in and see how many we can get in. So there's 1. And I'm going to work my way across. There's 2. There's 3. And it looks like it's going to be, 4 across. Now, it's not perfect, but as you can see, I can fit 4 cubes across. So it looks like, and we can probably write this straight away, it looks like the length of this cube is going to be 4 units across, right? And we can write 4 cubed units. Actually, I'll just write units, 4 units. Now, let's go and see how many more we can fit in. Let's go. What I might start doing is I might start stacking them behind, like this. There's another one. There's another one. And here's my last row. So I've still got a lot of cubes to fill up here. So let's get a move on. Let's keep going. Filling my 3rd row now. Now, if you're keeping track, this here is my 12th. I've just fit in 12 cube units so far, and it looks like I've still got another row that I can fit in. So I'm going to go another row. There's my 13th, 14, 15, and 16 in the corner. Good. So my bottom layer of cubed units can fit 16 cube units in there. Now that would make sense because if you look closely, it looks like we can fit 4 rows of cube units along the width of the giant cube. So we can write this as width equals 4 units. Cool. Now, if you remember back from previous maths you might have taken, I've been calling this object a cube. This entire black object here is a cube. So if it is a cube, then yeah, so far what we've measured is satisfying the requirements of a cube. The length is 4, the width is 4, and my estimation, or sorry, my prediction is that the width, the height, excuse me, is going to be 4 units as well. So let's go ahead. I'll fast forward the video and I'll show what it looks like after it's completed. Okay, now all layers have been completed. As you can see, there are clearly 1, 2, 3, and 4 layers. So the height there would be 4 units. Alright, so now we have a 3D object filled in with cubes. It looks really confusing at this stage, but the idea is that you want to count how many cubes were actually used, right? How many cubes were used to measure the volume of this object, and that's basically your answer as to the volume. And I was counting in my head the whole time, and I got 64 cubed units. That's how many I counted, and that is the volume of this object. Now, how do you actually use a formula to work out the volume of this object? Well, it turns out there is a formula, and it's literally the length of your object, which is 4 units here, multiplied by the width, multiplied by the height.